we're accepting Iran, yeah. The winter officially started. So we'll take you videos as well over there. It's crazy. You can see Moses.
You can see now.
Yeah, but not from the angle. I'm talking about you come from the angle of smoke. Yeah. Show the picture. And you can see tanks driving along the border or inside Gaza.
Well, this is, we are getting 100.
That's 100 to 400, yeah?
This is 28 to 300 with crop factor.
I see.
So it's 400.
I have the 100 to 400,
I
which
tried
I'm not
that.
using.
You
have it? Okay.
But you know what's the problem with the I can go out too
Yeah.
much, you know, either you're there, it's purple. This is more
Is it sharp
video.
enough for video?
This one.
Yeah.
Sure. This is coming fabulous.
Wait, maybe there's a tank. Well, one sec. Yeah, I did a tank.
Yeah, but you need to come closer.
Yeah. No shelter around us.
Yeah,
You're not
okay,
supposed to.
stay.
We can try. I spent a few hours there. No one comes to me. Actually, no one can come to you as well because there's like a fence surrounding you. Okay, near wants a picture. So you're here from what time? When you start the day?
6:15, 6:30. That's word.
Yeah.
7:30. Okay, because 6:30 is still foggy.
Okay. Look, your smoke coming out of the fog is amazing.
Yeah, but they're literally the money that they both sides.
Okay. Then why go launching early, huh?
Launching.
They're shooting singles now instead of like 30 they used to
Yes,
shoot
they
at
had
the
80
beginning.
roll like this.
80, that was towards the center, Tel Aviv.
Oh, Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
If you want to hunt for that,
Ah, okay. Okay? You should try my hummus. I'll make a hummus for you. Actually, I don't ask you. I invite you all to a pizza. I'm making an amazing pizza. Yeah, only. Okay. Promise, I'll teach you everything I know if you'll be minded.
have descended. In fact, it feels like hundreds of thousands of people have descended on central London for a fourth weekend in a row, and they're here to demonstrate against what they say is the inhumane bombing of Gaza by the Israeli government. There are, in fact, around 6 organisations that have come together under an organisation called the Stop the War Coalition. There were smaller demonstrations held in local parts of London and across the country earlier today, and then everyone was told to convene here at 3 o'clock, and that's exactly what they've done. Now, they are calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. They're talking about an end to the bombing. We know the Israeli government have refused to hold a ceasefire, and also the British government have refused to back the ceasefire. So it's not just about speaking to the Israeli government here, it's also about speaking to the British government and urging them to put pressure on the Israelis, who say that they are just doing what they need to do to take out Hamas because of what happened on October the 7th. Now, we've been speaking to people at the demo, and this is what they've been telling us.
We just think that this whole thing has to stop, and we just want it to come together as a big community of people and show everyone that the UK does stand with Palestine. Despite what everybody's saying, the UK, it's clear that the UK does stand with Palestine.
It's not just about Jews, and it's not just about the Israelis. Palestinians also are human.
You don't need to be Muslim to stand up for them. You just need to be human.
Yeah.
The innocent killing of children, and how long they've been doing it for now.
7 days I cried for my parents, but since then I'm crying for all the innocent human beings that are sacrificing their life now. There are many Israeli soldiers that are being killed. There are many citizens in Gaza that are being killed. And there would be no comfort for their families. No one, and none of them will bring my parents back to life. So we must stop with sacrificing human beings to justify anger or need for revenge. My anger is against the Israeli government and the state of Israel. The state of Israel, a state as an idea or as a concept, should save and keep the life of its citizens and take care for them. It's not for us to protect ourselves. It's not for us to fight for our life. That is why the state of Israel was established, to build a safe place for the Jewish people. And what happened in October 7th, under Netanyahu extreme right government, was the biggest disaster for the Jewish people since the Holocaust.
I miss my mother when I see this photo and how she loved to be with the children and the grandchildren. My effort is now to do everything that can bring her back. But my opinion on the peace process doesn't change. I don't think that we can solve this problem in a military way. It's all the time escalate. They bomb us, we bomb them, and every time it's worse. It's worse, and that's what brings us to the 7th of October. Hurting the civilians in Gaza won't help to bring my mom and her friends back, and I don't think that it can help us in any way. The only way to bring them back, it's diplomatic way. I think the Hamas, the people that do it, need to punish, but not all the people in Gaza. They suffer from the Hamas as well as us.
I was thinking that if the Hamas terrorists who killed my parents, who is probably still alive, if he would sit here in front of me, I would cry. And I will try to understand why he has done what he has done. I will try to understand his motivation. I will try to learn his mind in order there will be no more people like him.
hospitals and schools. We've seen the mass displacement of over 1 million Palestinians, refugees, to be made refugees again. Dear brothers and sisters, pay close attention.
We'll be free. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free. Guilty, 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 guilty.
Angle, it would be very nice for a video shoot as well, but I don't want to burn this position unless we have perfect light condition. Because today it's pretty white. It's bad. It's even closer than this distance to Gaza, but to go there, you go like in an elegant way into the power plant, like you're walking inside, and then there's a rail on the road, and you can just go inside the nature reserve.
So you drive all the way in with small cars?
No, I'm driving, and I'm parking the car in a place. I don't want to run the car to Gaza.
bring in our correspondent Stephanie Freed. She's live for us from the Negev desert. Well, Stephanie, the IDF said they are ground troops took control of a Hamas military compound in the Gaza Strip as Israeli forces struck over 450 Hamas targets on Sunday. Tell us more about Israel's operations there.
Right, yes, that's what we're also getting here is about the takeover of the compound. We're also hearing that from the IDF that they killed a top Hamas commander of sorts in charge of special operations. It's a little bit unclear at the moment, but they've killed one of the top operatives for Hamas. What the IDF is saying on Monday is that they have essentially split the Gaza Strip in two between north and south. So it's a two-prong offensive, and they're saying that they're encouraging people, again, still, to go south, civilians, that is. And they say they're opening a corridor for several hours so people can go south as they continue concentrating their efforts around Gaza City, in Gaza City, where the command and control center of Hamas is, and under the city in the tunnel system, according to Israel's military and intelligence apparatus. So that is why they are encircling the city. That's why they're going in. That's why they're taking over command posts. And of course, their ultimate aim is to knock out the command and control centers, the launching pads, to actually knock out Hamas people there. That's what's happening. At the same time, there was an effort by Jordan to airdrop medical aid onto the Gaza Strip, into the Gaza Strip. That was coordinated with Israel and the United States, so we understand that has happened. We understand also there are going to be possible medical ships offshore that will come and land, or they will dock themselves offshore Gaza, as well as possible field hospitals for Gaza civilians throughout Gaza. But the technicalities, the details of that have yet to be laid out and planned. We're also getting word that the U.S. has issued a strong warning to Hezbollah in Lebanon and to Iran beyond, saying essentially don't get involved and don't join or create another front or another war. Don't get involved in this. Perhaps to back up that warning, the U.S. now is sending what we understand is a nuclear-capable submarine to the Mediterranean Sea. So those are just some of the latest developments here in terms of what's happening in Gaza, what's happening beyond, and the U.S. warning.
Well, can you also bring us a sense of the public sentiment there at the moment in Israel? As we know, there have been protesters outside Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem.
Well, it's a very mixed public sentiment. Yes, people are angry with the government right now, angry specifically with Benjamin Netanyahu. Those protests were calling on him to resign. There's anger. They feel that much of the blame for what happened here on October 7th, the mass killings, the kidnappings, that he and his government, who were preoccupied with their own internal and their own personal wishes and desires, that because of them, to a large degree, what happened here, the killings and the kidnappings. At the same time, you know, I'm here in the Negev desert because I just came from what is considered Israel's resort city in the Gulf of Aqaba. Jordan is right across the way. And the reason I was there certainly wasn't to be resorting. It's because hundreds of thousands of Israelis have been evacuated from danger zones along the northern border with Lebanon, around the area around Gaza. They've been evacuated and brought to places like Eilat, where we just came from, the resort city. And these are people, some of them, who were in their communities on October 7th when Hamas came in, people who struggled to stay alive, whose neighbors were killed, who were injured and wounded, and so they're evacuated here. And the irony is, you were asking about the public, so these people, they're being put up by the government or by organizations with funding in hotels to keep them out of harm's way while this campaign happens and mortars and rockets and missiles are being fired onto their towns from Lebanon and Gaza. But it's no vacation, and it's As I described it to a colleague, it's a golden cage. They want to go home. They've brought their dogs, they brought a suitcase with them, they can't go home. And that's the thing now, where Israel is in a state of limbo as this campaign continues, not knowing Israelis what will it look like the day after Israel says it will achieve its goals. When do people get to go home, and do they even want to go home to those communities where they were violated and people were murdered and kidnapped?
Stephanie Freed, thanks so much for bringing us the latest from the Negev Desert. And now, as we're trying to get hold of our correspondent in Gaza, Noor Harazin, let's first talk to our correspondent, Mahal Bardavid. U.S. Secretary of Antony Blinken has met with Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan in Ankara. And Blinken's visit looks to ease tensions for one of the U.S.'s most important allies in the region. And hours before his arrival, Mahal, protesters took to the streets of Adana in the south of Turkey. Hundreds of Palestine supporters rallied outside nearby U.S. air base. So first of all, Mahal, can you tell us more about the meeting between the two?
Well, yes, sure. U.S. Secretary of State Blinken arrived in Ankara last night, and he held a meeting with Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan today. That meeting lasted about 2.5 hours. They did not hold a press conference. Potentially, there might be a statement made by Blinken before he departs. His plane was on standby just a few minutes before our hit. So we are still waiting for a written statement from both sides regarding what was discussed. But of course, the main topic on the agenda was the ongoing fighting in Gaza between Israel and Hamas at the time. Turkey has now become one of the most vocal countries against Israel. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan himself has been making very strong statements. First of all, he said last week that Hamas is not a terrorist organization, according to Turkey. Then he added that Israel would be declared a war criminal. And over the weekend, Erdogan stated that now he does not regard Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as a counterpart, and that they have written him off. That's the quote he used. Last week, a pro-Palestinian rally that was led by Turkish President Erdogan managed to gather about 1.5 million people in Turkey. So a lot of support for Erdogan regarding his stance right now against Israel, even though he's been very harsh. And even though Turkey and the United States are allies, they have a very complicated relationship. They have many challenges, and this has been added to that list right now, even though it was always there regarding the stance on Israel with the Palestinians. But now, with the latest operations after October 7th and Israel's airstrikes, Turkey took it to another level, and that's why Israel first recalled its diplomats, and then Turkey also recalled its ambassador to Israel. But Turkey and the United States really have a lot of topics that they cooperate on as well. But I believe during his visit, the U.S. Secretary of State Blinken, he tried to probably calm Turkish officials regarding the situation. Even though Blinken, when he arrived to Turkey, he had just been to Jordan, Israel, and the West Bank, and there he added to the United States' stance on Israel right now, because they also stated that the United States also is against a ceasefire right now because they believe it would allow Hamas to regroup and carry out similar attacks to that of October 7th. So, of course, I believe that probably didn't go too well with Turkish officials, but they're trying to probably tell them how much that Blinken has been pushing Israel and urging Israel to allow for some pauses in the fighting, to allow humanitarian aid to enter Gaza. And I think that probably was the center point regarding the efforts that the United States has been doing right now regarding Israel. Mama?
Yeah, well, we talked about the protest, Mahal, just now. Tell us more about what's going on there, and are the protesters' feelings shared throughout Turkey?
Well, there have been many protests against the United States as well as Israel since the fighting broke out after October 7th. And I have to say, many of them also took place right behind us. If you can see that major building that looks like a castle, that's the U.S. consulate in Istanbul, and many of the protests took place here. But one major one also took place yesterday, as you were talking about that, in Adana, in the southern city of Adana, at the Incirlik Air Base, which houses U.S. troops. A huge convoy of cars arrived there. Hundreds of protesters kind of turned violent. They tried to storm the base, and they threw plastic chairs at the barricades. They were faced with police who used water cannons and tear gas to disperse that crowd. So it kind of turned a little bit violent at that time. Yes, there is a lot of frustration towards the United States from Turkey, from especially the conservative base that supports Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his ruling government, AK Party. And even before Israel and Hamas, the situation, the government frequently blames outside forces for many domestic issues. So there is a lot of resentment against the United States and Western countries in general from that population. But specifically when it comes to pro-Palestinian sentiment, yes, there is a lot of fury from the Turkish public in general. But I have to say, turning violent, you know, the way they did at the airbase yesterday, trying to storm inside that base, and also, for example, burning flags of Israel or the United States, I would say that's not a good representation of the Turkish public in general. But there is a lot of fury and a lot of criticism against the United States and Israel.
Thanks so much, Michal, for that. Michal Bardavid for us from Istanbul. Over in Lebanon, the government says 40,000 olive trees have been set ablaze by Israeli bombings in the southern areas of the country bordering Israel. It has accused Israel of using white phosphorus bombs, which are prohibited by international law. Zara Alderzi reports.
More than 40,000 olive trees have been destroyed, according to the Lebanese government, devastating the agricultural season for many farmers in the border areas. Specialized teams from the civil defense and local supporting associations are tirelessly working to extinguish these fires, despite repeated Israeli targeting.
Until yesterday, over 100 fires have erupted in the southern border region due to phosphorus bomb attacks. Preliminary surveys indicate that approximately 4,620,000 square meters of land have been scorched, primarily consisting of dense pine and oak forests, along with 30 hectares of predominantly agricultural land, including perennial olive trees.
The environmental consequences of this deliberate targeting of agricultural lands are anticipated. Soil samples are currently undergoing testing to assess the existing damage and predict its long-term impact on both the soil quality and public health.
Fires have spread to the ground, resulting in crop damage, and there is a belief that they have caused environmental harm. We have requested the Civil Defense to collect soil samples for testing at the Scientific Research Center to assess the extent of the environmental damage they may have inflicted.
Nawal Sur, who was displaced from Ait al-Shab, spoke to CGTN about the farms she had to leave behind, which included the crops, and the damage she has suffered.
Everything was burned by the phosphorus bombs. Olives, grapes, figs, peaches, tobacco, wheat, and barley. We cultivate a wide variety of crops, and unless the land is rehabilitated, we're unable to replant due to contamination with phosphorus. And you know the diseases it can trigger.
Israel asserts that its bombing of southern farms and orchards is aimed at preventing Hezbollah fighters from infiltrating and approaching its positions. This action is causing damage that could potentially take years to rectify. The Lebanese government says an entire agricultural season has been affected by the Israeli attacks on the Lebanese borders, where the cultivation of crops such as tobacco and olives represents a fundamental source of livelihood for village communities. And there are fears that the damage could affect future seasons due to Israel's alleged use of white phosphorus. Zahra Derzi, CGTN, Southern Lebanon.